This is a tale of two dragons under the Nightfall audiobook. You can listen to it or follow the pages along, and every time a new chapter starts, you'll hear this sound. Enjoy the story. Night tinted the forest a deep shade of indigo. Basil shivered as a bitter breeze whispered through the fibers of his shirt. It glided over his dark purple scales, spreading cold roots between them that reached down and coiled around his bones. He pulled at the loose folds of his clothes as they rippled in the wind. His heart rocked in his chest as his eyes scanned the forest around him.
Should be around here somewhere.
He whispered.
This is a bad idea.
Another breeze passed through him and the air rattled above him. He looked up into the twisted canopy of branches above, interlacing like a net of bony fingers that reached down to ensnare him. Basil shuddered again. Streams of cold light fell from the moon, filtering into dense shafts through the forest canopy. Creak! Basil froze mid-step. His foot wasn't all the way down, and his heart threw itself against his ribs, daring to throw him forward onto his face. His long ears were stiff. They tilted and twitched. His sapphire eyes searched the darkness for the source of the noise. A rustle threw his head to the left. He tilted forward. Creech! Fallen leaves crackled beneath his heel. Basil bit his tongue and held his breath. He squeezed his eyes shut. Thrum, 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 thrum. His heart clogged his ears. He tensed his body and braced against the coming threat. Eternity passed in seconds. No claws found his flesh. No jaws found his throat. He opened his eyes again and let out a long, shaky breath.
It's okay. It's okay.
He pressed on, inching past gnarled tree trunks coated in moss. Dense bushes filled in some of the spaces between the twisting trunks. They glittered with bright red berries, poisonous and bitter to the taste. He plucked one and rolled it between his fingers as he walked, until it slipped from his grasp and disappeared among the roots and woodland debris. He lifted branches away from his face and waded through brush. At every little sound of the woods, he paused, until at last, the overgrowth parted into a round clearing. Moonlight spilled over sparse grass. Clink! The sound drove itself into his skull, like arrows piercing his ears. The sound of metal kissing metal. A thick net of chill spiraled down his core. Clink! Clank! Basil launched himself into a patch of berry bushes at the edge of the clearing. Clink! The metal rattled again. Clink! Thud! Something hit the grass. He raised trembling hands over his mouth, his heart beat against the ground beneath his chest. He twisted and crawled forward. The bush rattled around him. His muscles were taut and cold. He pulled one hand away from his mouth to part the twigs in front of him and peer out from his shelter. Broken lengths of chain lay strewn about, half buried in the grass. Among them were fragments of a smooth metal plate. Something dark glistened on its surface in the pallid light of the moon.
Is that blood?
Basil's stomach twisted. A long guttural sound stumbled out from the trees across the clearing. It crossed the grass like a stalking predator and pinned him down. He lifted his gaze from the discarded metal scraps. A set of glowing purple eyes fixed themselves on his cover, and another growl crawled out from the shadows. The growling stopped and the forest rustled. The eyes found their place on the emerging figure of a young dragoness. Her scales were a cold light blue. The wind tugged at her sackcloth dress as she found her way to the center of the clearing and sat down. Basil's heart slowed to a murmur. He followed her amethyst gaze around the rims of the forest. The clearing wasn't natural. The ground at its edges was littered with blackened debris, broken branches, and shattered stone. Patches of grass were burned away. Smoking stumps dotted the space. The dragoness hugged her knees to her chest and began to rock in place. Something glistened on her hands, catching Basil's eyes. Dark purple blood dripped from her palms.
She's hurt.
A knot tightened in Basil's chest. He should leave. He needs to leave. He shifted, backing out of the bush on his stomach, then paused.
What would Dad do in this situation?
A new resolution gripped his heart, wrangling it into submission. Basil rose from the bushes. The dragoness leapt to her feet and whirled, baring her fangs and growling again. His heart stopped for a moment, and he froze.
Hey,
He said. He held out a hand.
you're bleeding.
She stopped growling, looking down at her hands, then back up at Basil. He took a couple steps forward. Her gaze flew back up to him, and she took 2 steps back. Basil continued his approach, testing each slow step. He reached down and took one of her hands. She jerked it away and snarled.
Easy, easy.
He said.
I just want to help.
He took her hand again and studied it. Her palm was marred with deep cuts that oozed dark blood out over her scales.
That looks painful.
He reached down and tore a piece of fabric from the hem of his shirt. He ripped it into ragged strips and, taking her hand again, began to wrap her wounds. The dragoness watched and tilted her head to one side. Basil finished tying the first bandage and smiled at her.
See? I just want to help.
When Basil returned to the clearing the next night, the dragoness was waiting for him. This time, she did not growl or snarl when he approached her, but instead allowed him to check and redress her wounds. The night after was the same, and before long, the two were meeting almost every night. They would sit together in the clearing, and Basil would talk to her. He told her of his other friends, his home, his family, the things he liked to do, and through it all, she would sit and listen, studying him with those glowing eyes.
Hey.
Basil paused in the middle of a story. The dragoness looked up from a little bundle of roots that had taken her interest.
What's your name?
She remained silent and stared at him. Basil squirmed under her gaze.
Sorry, maybe I shouldn't have asked. I don't know if she can talk anyways.
Name.
Her voice was small and soft.
Name.
His heart leapt.
Yes, your name. What do I call you?
Name. Fyra.
She grinned.
Name Fyra.
Warmth welled up in Basil's chest. He smiled.
Fyra. That's a beautiful name. What do you like to do, Fyra?
Her smile vanished and she cocked her head to one side.
Like?
Yeah, like, what makes you happy?
Makes Fyra happy.
She stared up into the sky for a moment, then raised her hand. Her palm began to glow, and little strings of violet light began drifting from her fingertips. Basil's eyes widened. Words slipped from his mind's grasp as he watched the little stands of light slip away into the sky.
Incredible. How are you doing that?
Fyra just giggled.
Makes Fyra happy.
She held out her other hand and let more of the glowing, formless serpent slither away from her fingers. They slipped away into the night sky, weaving together and tangling with the stars. Their routine continued through the months, meeting at night to play, to talk, to laugh. Memories grew laced with the colors of fire as autumn burned away the vibrant greens of summer, then faded into the charcoal dim of winter. The longer they were together, the more Fyra learned to speak. But she never spoke of herself. No mention of home, of a family, of where she would disappear to in the daylight. Basil grew restless with curiosity, but he never pried. One night, he arrived at the clearing in the forest, which had become their usual meeting spot. But Fyra wasn't there.
Maybe she's just late?
Basil sat down in the grass and waited. The moon wandered across the sky as time passed around him. Fyra was nowhere to be seen. Basil's heart began to quicken and tense in his chest.
Did she get hurt?
No. It was best not to think that way.
Maybe she did have a family. Maybe they finally found her.
Basil smiled a little.
But that would mean...
He shook his head. Possibilities crowded around him in the dark, packing the clearing with their shapes, and yet, he remained alone. Basil stood.
Guess she's not coming tonight.
He turned to head back home, but the thoughts that plagued him tightened their grip around his ankles. He turned again and headed deeper into the forest. He was on a small path, one beaten into the earth by bare feet and boot soles. It was one he knew well at this point, one that he and his mysterious friend had walked many times before. As he pushed past wilting ferns, the trees grew sparse and opened into another clearing, dominated by a vast lake. A narrow, forsaken wooden dock ran out into the middle of the silvery disk of water. He traced the length of it with his eyes until his gaze caught a familiar shape of a young dragoness sitting at the end, dangling her feet in the water. Basil's heart skipped. He leapt onto the dock and ran towards her. The hammering of his feet against rotting wooden planks reached her and lifted her glowing amethyst gaze to him. Basil slowed to a stop in front of her, panting.
Basil?
Fira said.
What are you doing here?
Her eyes fell back to the water below them.
Shouldn't be here.
Basil lowered himself down beside her. The water wrapped around his feet and sent frigid waves racing up his legs.
You weren't at our usual meeting spot. I was worried.
He looked away for a moment.
What are you doing here?
Silence settled itself in the small gap between them. Water lapped at the dock's thick supports. The surface of the lake pulled the image of the moon from the sky and broke it across its turbulent body. Basil shifted, the movement scattering ripples out and away from his legs in the water.
I'm scared.
Fira's voice was a whisper. She drew her knees up to her chest and hugged them.
Keep having nightmares. I do things. Bad things.
Fira buries her face against her knees.
Feel real. The bad things.
Fira's voice breaks. Her body trembles and she suffocates a sob.
Not sure if lost or in the right place.
Basil studied her for a moment. Growing up in the village, he'd never seen her before, and the nearest village was miles away. Maybe she was lost. Maybe someone was looking for her. His mind wandered back to the empty clearing.
Maybe one day they will find you, and then...
A knot formed in his throat.
Then...
Basil shook the thought away, leaned forward, and put his arms around her.
Even if you're lost, you're not alone, Fira. I'm here with you.
He said.
Maybe someone will come find you, but until then, you can always count on me. I want you to remember that. We're friends, and that's what friends do.
Friends?
That's right.
Basil whispered, holding her tighter.
Friends forever.
More time passed. The sun reared its head from hibernation and the world awoke into bloom. The air was thick with the heavy scent of pollen. Fresh blades of emerald green grass curled around Basil's feet as he ran. At the crest of a hill, the world plunged down a rolling slope that vanished into a vast forest, its canopy bright pink with blossoms. At the edge of that forest, Basil's eyes could make out the rough shape of a pale dragoness. Fira was waiting for him, just as he told her to.
Today's the day, then.
Basil grinned and began running down the hill. When he reached the edge of the forest, he stopped. Fira ducked behind the thick trunk of one of the larger trees.
Sorry, I'm late.
Basil said between breathless gasps.
I had to take care of something. I'm glad you came, though. You ready to try today?
Fira peered out from behind the trunk.
It's going to hurt me.
Basil couldn't stop the smile growing on his face.
It's just sunlight, Fira.
It burns. Sunlight burns.
Come on, you haven't even tried. How would you know?
Fira wilted a little and shrank back behind cover. Basil sighed and stepped into the forest. He walked around the trunk and found Fira leaning against it, staring at the ground and making nonsense shapes out of her interlaced fingers. Basil let his hands rest on his hips.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's have a race.
Fira perked up.
If you win, I'll bring you anything you want. And if I win, you gotta try stepping out into the sun. How does that...
Before he could finish, Fire darted past him, kicking up fallen leaves in her wake. She looked back over her shoulder, laughing as she ran.
You better be fast then,
she said.
Hey, wait! That's not fair! Ugh.
Basil groaned and took off after her.
Come on, Fyra, I won.
Basil pulled his companion by the wrist toward the open field. Fyra dug her heels into the soil, digging little furrows as Basil dragged her along.
only 'cause I let you.
Still counts. A deal's a deal.
Basil marched Fyra to the tree line, where the forest halted into a rolling plain of squat hills and shallow valleys. The sun cast rays of gold over an emerald sheet of grass. Each blade quivered at the touch of the breeze. The two traced its path over the hills by the ripples it pushed through the green. Pink flower petals rained from the blooming trees above them.
All right, ready?
Basil took a step forward. Fyra tugged back and he turned. She was gripping his sleeve and following the path of the roots beneath her with her eyes. Her ears were down and she was trembling. Basil sighed.
Look, Fyra, if you really don't want to do this, I'm not going to force you.
Fyra squirmed, then looked into his eyes with a hardened gaze. She tightened her grip on his sleeve.
How about this? Just put your hand out, okay? Just your hand. If it's true that the sun burns you, then I'll pull you right back into the woods.
You promise?
I promise.
Basil nodded. Fyra stepped forward past him. Her trembling fingers curled and uncurled at her side, then stretched out as she inched her hand up toward the edge of the forest's shadow. The light fell on her fingertip and she jerked back. Basil's heart skipped. He stepped forward to grab her by the shoulders and pull her away, but before he could, Fyra squeezed her eyes shut and shoved her whole hand out into the sunlight with a yelp. Nothing. Fyra was still. Basil began to smile. Fyra lifted her eyelids one at a time. They widened as she turned her hand over in the sunlight, curling and uncurling her fingers again.
It doesn't hurt,
she said. She pushed more of her arm out into the light. Then she took a step forward.
It doesn't hurt!
Her face lit up. She leapt out past the shadow's edge, showering herself in sunlight. She twirled and giggled.
It doesn't hurt! Basil, it doesn't hurt!
Basil grinned.
Told you it wasn't so bad.
For the first time in their months of friendship, Fyra was leading Basil. She held his hand, pulling him up over hills and down through valleys. They rushed past ponds and little fruit tree saplings. Rivers of flowers parted for them as they waded through. All the while, Fyra was laughing. She lifted her face to the sky and let the warmth of the sunlight wash over her snout. Basil's hand slipped from hers and fell to his knees. Panting, he chuckled.
Slow down, Fyra.
There's so much I want to do in the lake, though. I want to do it all. Quickly, before you have to go again.
Fyra's eyes were wild. She threw herself down among the flowers, laughing.
Take it easy,
Basil said between breaths. He paused, watching Fyra roll in the grass and flowers while she giggled.
You know, I think this is the first time I've ever seen you this happy.
Fyra froze, then sat up. She looked away and folded her hands in her lap.
Well,
she said.
This is all new for me, and I'm with you. I get to be with you in the light now. That makes me happy.
The sun vanished behind a veil of steel-gray clouds. The first falling drops delivered cold pricks to their skin, and the two retreated from the coming downpour into the forest. The thick canopy caught and soaked up most of the rain, keeping them somewhat dry until they came upon a hollow in a massive trunk. They took shelter within as the rain fell harder, battering the vanished sun's warmth down into the soil and dredging up the rich, earthy smell of mud. For an instant, the sky bloomed with brilliant, cold light. A long-pained groan followed from the heavens, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The two huddled together. Fyra leaned against Basil's shoulder, while Basil rested his back against the mossy wall of the hollowed trunk. Basil sighed.
You know, my mom always says that when the first rain of spring is a storm,
He said.
it means dark times are coming.
Fyra shut her eyes, adjusting herself a bit. Basil looked over at her.
Does the rain not bother you, Fyra?
Fyra opened one eye to glance back.
No. Why should it?
I don't know. It feels so sad, you know? It's boring, it's cold, it ruins everything fun.
I don't think so.
Fyra said, closing her eyes again.
I think the rain is relaxing. The sound of the water hitting the leaves on the ground, the smell of it all, it's calming.
She smiled a little.
Just shut your eyes and listen.
As the silence settled back over them, Basil shut his eyes. A chorus of gentle tapping and pattering flooded his head through his ears, like thousands of beads rolling over stone. The unending rattle numbed his mind. He pulled in a long breath through his nose, staining it with the scent of wet soil. The cold air washed the tension from his muscles, and he sank into the mossy ground.
I guess it's not so bad.
Silence. He opened his eyes. Fyra had dozed off. Basil smiled. He looked back out toward the canopy of leaves above them.
It's just a story anyways. Dark times won't come. Not when I'm with you.
Somewhere far above them, the rain fell harder. Its roar only parted by the thunderous groans of the aching clouds. Water rolled off the leaves of trees, crawled through gaps in their bark, and seeped into the forest floor. But its journey didn't end there. The water continued down through the soil until it met stone and spread itself across, finding little cracks in the earth's crust. It ran through these cracks, pushed down until it met open air once more. Tap! The creature flinched as a water drop broke over his scaly snout. A dragoness narrowed its glowing white eyes in the darkness, studying him.
So, where is it?
The creature lowered himself further to the floor of the stone chamber. In the shadows behind him, dozens of sulfur yellow eyes watched. We couldn't find her. We couldn't find it yet. We think we're real close, though. A tail thrust out from the darkness and coiled around the creature's throat, digging glimmering purple spikes into his flesh. He choked and clawed at it, but the black scales covering it were like iron against his fingertips.
I give you half a year to find it.
A dragoness glared into the creature's eyes as she stepped from the shadows, towering over him. Intricate scarlet patterns glowed on her purple dress in the darkness. A long scar fell across her left eye.
And the best you can do,
She continued, tightening her grip around the creature's throat.
is close.
Forgive us. The creature wheezed through a crushed windpipe. We just need more time. Just give us more time. The dragoness tightened her grip until the creature's eyes bulged and lifted him into the air. Violet blood began to crawl from the corners of his mouth. He clawed at her tail, croaking and gurgling, until his talons cracked and painted his fingers with the same blood.
I've given you nothing but time, worm.
She bared her fangs. An amethyst glow began to rise in the back of her throat. Heat washed out of her mouth.
Apparently I must do everything myself.
Please. The creature rasped. The spikes of her tail were piercing his skin now. His swollen head throbbed and pulsed. His eyes darkened as blood vessels ruptured within them from the pressure, covering the world in a scarlet haze. The dragoness shut her eyes and sighed. She released the creature. He fell to the floor in a heap, coughing and gasping.
2 months.
the dragoness said.
You'll have 2 months.
Thank you. The dragoness opened her eyes and drove her claws down through the head of the creature. Her talons pierced his skull and heaved it against the stone floor. Crunch! She tore her claws from his scalp. He twitched for a moment as blood fountained from the wound and pooled around his corpse. The dragoness lifted her hand to her mouth and licked the blood from her fingertips. Then, she turned her glare to the collection of eyes watching her from the darkness.
2 months. Find it. No more excuses.
She turned away, throwing one last glare over her shoulders.
Don't disappoint me again.